Hey everybody, welcome to a very special episode of Crossover Event, the show where we interview very creative people from the industries which we love and indulge them to talk about whatever they want in the wonderful world of pop culture. And today's guests, we have two amazing creators. Let me introduce Namaah and Nisha. Hi guys, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here and indulging us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
We just wanted to, do you guys want to just introduce yourselves and talk about what you guys do and maybe talk a little bit about the new podcast that you guys have released and are, well, depending on when people are listening to this, is going on right now?
I think if I was just to get into our ideas and how they kind of came about and became a podcast that it now is that Nisha and I have both always, I think our friendship started with our love for literature and specifically, magical realism and literature. And we'd always been very excited about the world ending. And now that it is,
This
put our heads
is our
together
time to
and
shine.
make it feel a little
Oh my gosh. It's awesome. I did see, I saw the trailer. I was talking to Dinkar also about it.
Episode 0, yeah?
Yeah, episode 0. Wow. It was like, I mean, the word that I used even to describe it was immersive. And that's not a very easy thing to do,
Yeah.
especially for like dystopian kind of, fiction, which obviously we all love. Yeah. So do you want to tell us about, so this episode is on like fiction podcast, which is, I feel like, an amazing thing to talk about because I don't know that many, shows, or at least I've not heard about, like I read a few blogs about, checking out which fiction podcasts you should check out and things like that. And there are a few that I really, really enjoy, but I really want to ask you guys, what are your favorite shows and why do you love why do you love that specific subgenre of podcasts?
I know that a favorite of both Nama and me is Welcome to Night Vale, and it's one of the things that really, I mean, over the years, Nama and I, we've been friends for a very long time. There's always this one thing that comes along every 2-3 years that we get really obsessed with. Okay, so it's been like we used to be really into the Beats back when we were really small babies, and then after that, I think there was a Dr. Horrible phase, and then after that, the other things. So the most recent thing was Night Vale, and we used to get really excited about it, and both of us use Night Vale to sort of go to sleep and then wake up and then read the transcript to know what happened. So I think that's been a major inspiration for us. And Nama puts it really well. She says that Night Vale is the place where every conspiracy theory is true. So that's been a bit of an inspiration for Apocalypstick also, because the Apocalypstick universe is where every apocalypse that could ever have been has already taken place. So everything that could have gone wrong has
an
gone
odd
wrong.
choice to go to sleep to because it's got a very calming energy because of just the way it's delivered and stuff and that, but it's not the most comforting stuff they're talking about. Like it's just like weird in the like most bizarre ways. Like I can see some odd dreams like falling asleep listening to that.
Yeah,
No,
it's like the Twilight Zone became an audio show. Yeah.
That's something we've discussed. We're like, I don't know why this is so calming. Like, actually, we should be pretty freaked out and disturbed, but we go to sleep feeling like really loud. Maybe it's Cecil's voice. Maybe it's, I don't know what it is. I'm like, oh, great. Everything is not okay. Just go right to sleep.
That's awesome, man. There's a show I remember which kind of, it reminded me a little bit of Night Vale. I used to listen to it when it started off. It was this show called, I think it was by Earwolf, Hello from the Magic Tavern. I don't know if you ever heard that.
Hello from the Magic Tavern, yeah. It's still running.
Which
It's
is like,
it's almost like a fantasy version, a fantasy comedy version of something like Welcome to Night Vale.
The premise of the show is a guy he fell off into a portal from behind a Burger King, and he fell into this magical kingdom. And he's still getting Wi-Fi signal, and he had all his podcasting gear with him. So he's like us, and he just does a podcast from this tavern in Zune. That's the name of the kingdom. But yeah, it's just bizarre. Are there any other kind of shows that you have like, or any not just podcasts, but like, are there any other things that maybe like have inspired your your love for like this dystopian kind of this thing, and why do you think that you feel like this is the kind of show that you want to make at the time when things look a little bit dodgy right now?
That's a really good question. So when Nama and I decided to make this, honestly, we didn't think of it as a podcast about the apocalypse being made during the apocalypse. That's something that happened later. When we started doing it, we just wanted to tell this really cool story about things that have excited us in the past, format that excited us. And because both of us are like, we work in a visual field, like removing the visual from storytelling was a challenge for us. And we're like, how are we going to do this? Like, our go-to is to illustrate or shoot or to animate something. And we're like, okay, it'll be cool to just not do what we know how to do best. But when we started writing it and putting it out there, I think obviously what's been happening around us has inspired a lot of the stuff we put into it. And then when we put it out, like the day we put it out there, we were like, okay, cool. So like our friends are going to like it and a few other people will like it. And then we can make episode 2. It got such a overwhelmingly good response that we realized we made like relatable content by mistake. Like it was not the intention at all. So
we put out episode 0 so far, and that's an audio visual episode. I think it's going to be interesting to see when it goes only to audio, episode 1 onwards, if our friends have equal amounts of kind things to say, because in a way also, Nisha and I both, I think, have been very early adopters of the podcast medium. I think the first podcast that really opened my eyes to the world of podcasting as a media I could consume was something called the Dead Authors Podcast, which I think was back in 2011, if I'm not mistaken.
I love that show. Oh my God. I literally know no one else who listens to it.
It is my favorite thing. It's yeah. So Nisha. So, but I think what the common thread between all of these things that we like has always been, like you said, right, the humanity of the characters and the bizarreness of the environment of these characters. I think the juxtaposition of those two things always makes for good storytelling, because that's kind of like how we see ourselves, right? That, oh, I'm really nice and this world is really bizarre around me. So there's an added bit of sort of indulgence to this kind of a podcast storytelling method. And yeah, I think that the fact that we have these same references, like I think very often in our minds we'll just be like, okay, if we're stuck, what would Terry Pratchett do? It's a very overarching theme in our writing journey together.
For someone, so for the people watching the show, give us like the outline of what the Apocalypstick podcast is going to be.
Apocalypstick is, in one line, the podcast at the end of the world. It started off being a variety show at the end of the world, but now it's just a podcast. The idea is that every apocalypse that could ever have taken place has already taken place. And we've gotten to a point in time where 3 major factions exist. One is called the Quiet People. Namaah, do you want to talk about the Quiet People a little bit and how they can be?
Quiet People are essentially the Illuminati of the aftermath of the, yes, I see your face.
Love it.
So they're the deep state, so to speak, and their basic funda in life is that excess noise and illegal sounds lead to misinformation, and that in this case lead to people sort of banding together and lead to information and people sort of coming together against the forces that be. So therefore, if you stop people from talking and communicating with each other by saying that, oh, noise pollution is a real threat, then you sort of get to control them like that. So the Quiet People are the purveyors of silence in this afterworld. The other 2 factions actually is the interesting thing, because those are personal stories that Nisha and I want to write as like sort of ideological sort of indulgences. So I'm going to talk about the one that I sort of wanted to write for a really long time, and then I think Nisha can take the other one. Is that so my band of people is called the Anti-Ambitionists, because I have long held the belief that doing nothing is the most important thing in the world. It's the hardest thing to do, and sometimes it's the best thing to do. And in our post-apocalyptic scenario, my character and my non-character person believes that all the problems of humanity can be traced back to human ambition and the sort of focus on productivity that just kind of gets out of hand as humanity progresses. And therefore, the only way to restore balance in humanity is to absolutely do nothing. Be a slacker, put your feet on the table, and just watch while the world burns, because that's entropy, right? So it's a very defeatist, but a very sort of slacker attitude to life. And because I feel so strongly about it in real life, I thought that I'd write a character out of it and kind of do a whole movement around it, because it seems like a fun movement to be a part of.
So again, one of the things about the world in 2080 is that the moon has been shot out of the sky in the second space race. So what happens is, without the moon, you don't have a lot of things. Like, you don't have tides, you don't have anything for witches to fly against in the night, and you don't have
You don't have that great negative space in the sky.
Exactly. And you have like a lot of werewolves who turned and then can't turn back because there's no moon. So there's a lot of little problems stuck like that. So in that space where there's no tides and stuff like that, there are no plants left. The plants got so tired and sick of all of us and our shit that when scientists engineered them to have limbs, which naturally is just a few years away, they just left. No, yeah. Yeah. Nobody knows where they went, and there's been a group of people who've been trying to figure out a way to repopulate the earth with plants, and they're very originally called the plant people. And my character or the one that I play on the show, is basically based on trying to do the opposite of what Namaah's character is doing. I feel like complacency is what has gotten the human race to where it is. So I'm like, we got to do something. We have to find a way to put plants back in earth. We have to put the moon back in the sky. We have to do all of this. And so that's the story. And there's the conflict between the two of us. And overall, we're both feeling pretty oppressed by the quiet people, because any good dystopia needs to have a really good oppressive figure. The whole idea of Apocalipstick is we're both these renegade podcasters who are telling the quiet people to fuck off by just putting sound out into the world.
A podcast rebellion.
For someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a podcast rebellion, and that's why like the theme, like the tagline of the show is anyone listening?
It's such a like complicated world that you guys are setting up. So
yes,
are you like,
true.
do you have a storyline in mind already, or are you kind of going for like a narrative that you figure out as you write?
It's a bit of both. We kind of know where this is culminating to a certain extent, but how we get there is what we're figuring out as well. Like you said, there are so many little stories, and we've also built out so many little characters, and I think the first 10 episodes or so is just going to be like establishing a lot of these and opening out the threads. Yeah. Right. So exposition for 10 episodes.
I wanted to ask you guys a question that has been like I've been thinking about as well, just about podcasting and how podcasting is becoming such it's becoming a thing here. My impression has been that most people believe podcasting to be like just this long form discussion format, no editing, no scripting, so easy work, which is why I was so excited to hear like a high quality kind of idea. So what is your take on like podcasting in India generally, and what do you guys listen to over here, if you are listening to anything, and just your thoughts on that?
I think why podcasting is really on the rise is, honestly, as a generation, everyone is really bombarded by visuals all the time. So it's nice to have something to sort of passively partake in. Like I can put on a podcast and do the dishes. I can put on a podcast and do pretty much anything. I know there's not that many fiction podcasts out there, but I think it'll hopefully be a medium people are interested in, because what makes me excited about them is almost every fiction podcast I've ever liked, despite not having visuals, has always been cinematic. Like I can literally imagine what's happening in front of my eyes, and it's, whether it's through the voice acting or the sound design, it's really hard not to get hooked into it. So that's my sense on it.
Yeah,
and of the podcasts we listen to in India, definitely Geek Fruit and Namaah's husband.
You guys, it just set you up so easily for that one.
No, honestly, but I love listening to it, and I always crack up when you guys laugh. It's really contagious, honestly. And Namaah's husband is a podcaster.
He is.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah,
that's how I have the swanky mic. It's not for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does a really cool podcast. They just did a call with Pooja Mishra of kicking the dustbin by mistake.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Whoa.
Oh my God, that is a personal hero. Oh,
there's a pecking order in
insane.
this house. It's like I'm the less good podcaster right now. But fiction podcasts still not a huge market for in India, I think. Specifically, I don't know if brands are interested at all, and I don't think they're going to be for a long time. But I do see it as a creative outlet for people who may not know. Say, for example, you have a great idea, but you're not an illustrator. You're not, you may not be somebody who can animate, or you may not be somebody who can put together production. So that's the fun part, and the sort of the sort of thing that really makes me feel like fiction podcasts are the way to go, because lots of people don't read anymore. It's not easy to. I mean, I'm sure we all grew up being people who read novels after novels, but when was the last time you really read as much as you did, say, 10 years ago? It doesn't happen because we don't have the time. We're like reading more like 10,000 word articles now.
It is taking me back to the days of like radio drama from like BBC and stuff, which was so good because like so many amazing things happened from the fact that they were just basically doing plays but as on the radio, and now it's kind of such a fertile ground for like the same kind of fiction podcast. And so yeah, man, definitely excited for more episodes of Apocalypstick, which is a fucking great name. And I think Dinkar, do you have anything else to add before we go to hot takes?
No, I think it's time for hot takes.
All right, it's time for hot takes. There's no like segue, which like a button and everything goes like, whoosh. Welcome to hot takes. No, we're just gonna throw some titles at you, and we're gonna see what your reaction to it.
What do you guys think of the Star Wars sequel trilogy?
I don't think of it much at all.
Yeah, I'm as somebody who cares so much about literally everything else within the genre, I just cannot get myself to care about Star Wars. I'm so sorry.
I'm so angry right now.
I know. I'm so
fine.
sorry.
No. This is a safe space.
That might be the
Comment
that might be the most natural reaction, actually.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's fine. We have to ask a Star Wars question because that's just like it's a control question.
And my lack of caring about Star Wars also I feel very strongly about. So I'm glad you asked. Like I really need to tell someone I don't care about Star Wars this week.
That's fine. That's okay.
The Hobbit Trilogy.
Okay, guys, I have to what Namaah said about Star Wars, and please don't be upset with me, but I must be the only person on the entire planet Earth that I have neither seen the films nor read the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I've tried to read The Hobbit, but it was very, very slow for me. It felt like
it could have been
500 pages shorter if he had just written shorter sentences. He should have tweeted it.
The Hobbit is not even 500 pages, is it? It's like
it's already 100 pages too many.
Exactly.
So I didn't quite get into it.
Okay, no, that's fine.
No, I do love, I love Tolkien and everything Tolkien, like from the start to the end. But I think, also the movies are really sweet, but I think Martin Freeman can stop playing like now these characters because he will always just be Martin Freeman now. He will never not be Martin Freeman.
That is one type of casting,
yeah, I don't like him very much in it because I'm ticked off with him for a different reason, like different movies and shows that he's done. But yeah, if he were different, I think it's a sweet little adaptation. There's nothing wrong with it. Like I know some people in the fandom are very upset, but I don't do fandom like that anymore.
Why are they upset, guys, if you don't mind?
They were upset mostly because they thought a children's book, which was like a very short book, was expanded unnecessarily into 3 films rather than just doing one.
That's exactly how I felt about it.
And then it just added a lot of extraneous. No, so I'm saying like if you thought The Hobbit was too long as a book, the movies are definitely not. Because there are 3 movies and they have expanded editions of those as well.
Yeah, no, but huge fan generally of that space in culture. Yeah,
Peter Jackson, what a contributor to the world of pop culture. Amazing. Dinkar, next.
Okay, you got to tell us whether you're Asterisk people or Tintin people.
I'm a Tintin person.
I'm an Asterix person. I think Tintin has very of late I've not been able to enjoy Tintin as much as I would like to because of obvious reasons. But always an Asterix person. I love Tintin, no shade.
I love Asterix as well. I enjoy the writing of Asterix more, like the little silly names and stuff.
That's what I like about Asterix. It's completely bizarre in so many ways, but then so rooted in history you and I may not, or mythology you and I might not be aware of. So I think they tread a really fine line between the fantastic and the surreal.
Yeah, I think with Tintin, it has that much more nostalgia value. Like when something is just something you enjoyed so much as a child, it's hard to just not have a soft spot for it.
Most people, just for your information, most people on the show have picked Asterix, which is it's interesting. I don't know if it's...
Tintin was a lot more accessible, you are right. Like I would assume Tintin has more fans in the world, but I guess you attract a certain kind of person.
Next, Dinkar, what's our next topic?
Okay, do you guys have any opinions on this whole Snyder cut of Justice League situation?
There are a few things in this world I don't have an opinion on. This is not one of them. But yeah, I just genuinely think the amount of dropping of the ball that DC had, because I've always, and usually I don't believe in the dichotomies like DC person, Marvel person, or this, that, the other, but I've always cared about DC Marvel a lot, because I think the ethos is very, like, it's very, very different, right? One is very character driven, the other one is Marvel. So, sorry, but I love Marvel also, but I think DC has just dropped the ball so hard on film that I cannot, and I think Zack Snyder has a lot to do with it. Because even when it's good, it's not great. Like it could be better good. So I'm pissed off with him for reasons other than very racist sort of depictions of certain factions, etc. With Avengers, I was like, take my money, because it's like, it's indulgent. But with DC, I have like an emotional bond. I need this to, like, I need it to go well so that I can be like, I'm a DC person and feel cool again. Because for the past 10 years, I have not. Like, I've had to sort of explain myself. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God.
Thank God for Watchmen. Understand. Like, Watchmen saves me on that one.
Oof, my God. Just the best show from last year. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, for sure. Because that movie was like really a mess.
So I thought the movie was, Zack Snyder doing what he's good at, which is just like looking at
taking
like references
a book and then making a bad movie out of it.
Control C, Control V.
Yeah, exactly. It took all the nuance out of the book and just made it a straightforward like superhero movie, which it
and they removed the best part about the book, which is the alien, the squid alien kind of thing, which is I wanted to ask you guys just to, if you want to plug anything, this is the moment.
I actually want to talk about two things which I was thinking about since fiction podcast. I think a lot of the podcasts we talked about were all in that sort of eerie, Night Vale, Dream Boy, that kind of space. But I've recently actively started trying to look out for podcasts that aren't in that space. And I found one, I think a couple of days ago, and I was telling Namaah about it, called Childish, which is a musical podcast. I don't know if you guys have heard it. Yeah, so it's basically...
that was my idea.
It's really, I mean, I'm only 2 or 3 episodes in, but I'm so compelled because I also really like musicals. But the idea is that there's this guy who goes to become an RA in the same place that Donald Glover used to be an RA at, because he's a huge Childish Gambino fan. And it's a musical about his musical joke. And it's so nice to listen to something that sounds a lot more sort of wholesome and I don't know, TV sitcom-y on podcast. It's just unusual. Yeah. So check it out. And the other one I really like, which is The Great Orbiting Human Circus of the Air. It's like the audio equivalent of something like the latest series of Unfortunate Events thing, like that has that little over the top when characters.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, like
that's exactly what it's like. It's very Terry Gilliam and
Yeah, so the idea is that it's about a janitor who works in this space where a radio show takes place, and he wants to participate in it. And it has some of the most, like, the writing is so crisp that I've actually done physical double takes. Like, for instance, he'll say, hey, what is a magician's favorite Beatles song?
Go for it. No.
I saw her standing there. But like I saw her standing there. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, so it has some really good.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so check it out. Yeah, check it out.
I remember Nisha literally stopping her podcast, calling me to tell me this joke and saying, oh, I heard It's so lovely.
Good. Namaah, do you want to, any last couple of things if you want to plug anything?
Okay, so I'm just going to go with what I'm listening to right now and what I think everyone else should listen to. So what everyone else should listen to, I think, is this podcast called Alice Isn't Dead. It's by Night Vale Presents, and I will never say anything is better than Night Vale, but it's better than Night Vale. Mostly, it's great to fall asleep to. Cinematically, storytelling wise, it's beautiful. I think Jessica Nicole is by far the most magically gifted voice artist there is. If there's one voice I could fall asleep to any day, it's hers. So Alice Isn't Dead. Great podcast from, like, in any way you slice it, it's just fantastic. So that I hope more people listen to. And what I'm listening to right now, which is this thing called Greater Boston. Like the Orbiting Human Circus, it's actually stylistically very similar. I think obviously we have a type, but it's just such rich storytelling. And what I like about podcasts also, it's the slow medium, right? Stories just come together over time, and they're so deeply character driven, because if they're not, you lose interest. So I hope more people listen to that. And sorry, one last one I think I will talk
Sure.
about is the Amelia Project, which if you just like standalone good magical realism, it's just like 20-minute stories. Like, of course, there's a larger arc, but it's the Amelia Project is basically an organization that specializes in making people disappear in horrific ways so that they can escape their current life and go into a new one. And if you like bite-sized stuff that doesn't sort of build over time, I think the Amelia Project is a great podcast to get into, because they're really fun and they have 2 series out now. So there's a lot to catch up on.
That's
Woof.
the third
Okay,
podcast
cool.
you like,
Awesome,
the
man.
premise of which is a disappearing person. What is up with that?
I know. If I disappear.
No, this is some really highly curated stuff. I love it. Dinkar and I definitely have some listening to do and
We have
adding
some
to it.
catching up to do, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Just give us a
amazing.
few months and we'll
Can
get
we
back
talk
to you.
about one last podcast which we love, which you should check out? It's called the Far Meridian. It is about
Yes.
a person who disappears. Okay, just saying.
I'm on this one.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
It's basically a girl who lives in a lighthouse, okay, and the lighthouse turns up in a different place every day. Kind of like the magic faraway tree when you're a kid, like it goes to another world every day.
Right.
Every day the lighthouse goes to a new place. But the problem is she's agoraphobic, so she never steps out, and every day she has to acclimatize to a new thing until one day, surprisingly, her brother disappears, and then she has to go on a hunt to find him.
So if
Disappearing
Nisha
podcast.
and I ever disappear, you know who did it. The clues are in our listening history.
Amazing.
I would assume you were doing a fiction podcast where someone disappears and you're just going really method.
Truly immersive. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being
you,
on
guys.
Crossover Event. It was such a pleasure, man. This is amazing. We got our first, I want to say, like fiction podcast, which is gonna, really be exciting to listen to in India, from India, and just generally, it's just like just an interesting concept. And at the same time, you've told us some amazing shows to check out. So, where can we find you guys on Twitter or Instagram? Just guys, don't give us post work.
I'm Tumble Tucker on Instagram and also on Twitter, but I'm not very active there.
I am the Happy Noodle with 2 zeros instead of O's on Twitter. I think that's my social media of choice. So you can just find me there. Or I'm at Designer of Color, spelled how it's supposed to be spelled, on Instagram. So yeah.
And the podcast has a handle as well.
It's Apocalipstick dot podcast.
Yeah.
We're so in sync, guys.
I love it. Yeah.
Synergy, man. Fuck.
Synergy, dog. All right, cool. All right, cool.
Thank you
so much, guys.
again. This was
Thank
fun.
you so much.
the
This
show.
was really fun.